Good morning, everyone. It's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. So today we are going to look at the paper pumpkin kit for this month, for the month of June, and it is called Full of Charm. And so I have a variety of different alternate card ideas that I want to share with you today. Um, so this kit, I think, had enough, let's see, it had enough supplies to create 9 cards, so 3 of each of the 3 different designs. So today I'm just going to show you, I'll show you what the kit cards look like, and then I'll show you some of the ways that I use the supplies in the kit to create some additional cards. So typically I'm able to create somewhere around 15 to 20, maybe a little bit more different cards with each kit. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. So these are just some of the alternate designs from this kit. So I'll walk you through how to create some of these, and then I'll show you all the different designs that I have. I think I have 8 different designs. So let's look at what the kit cards are. So these are the cards for the that came in the kit. Let me just grab the other one. Here they are. Let me get them all on the screen. So these are the 3 different designs from the kit. And basically what I did is I took these supplies and I took the card bases and I cut them up to create my alternate designs. But I always like to create at least one of each of the designs from the kit, just to give you an idea of what they look like. So each of the cards in this kit, they all have their own card bases. And the card bases are printed on the front and back. And so I like to cut the card bases in half so that I have 2 pieces to play with to create the alternate designs. So once you cut each of the 9 card bases in half, you'll have, well, what is that? 18. I can't even think this morning. 18 different pieces that you can use for creating your alternate designs. So this is just one of the card bases that I cut apart. Now, the kit also came with some coordinating envelopes. So actually, this time I did not cut apart the envelopes. I just cut apart the card bases. All right, so let's move these out of the way. The stamp set that came with the kit looks like this. So these are the images from the stamp set. And then it also came with a little pretty peacock stampin' spot. So those are just some of the things in the kit. So let's look at these alternate designs first. So in the kit, we had this very large floral piece that was used to create, let's see, this kit design right here. So you use the big piece on the card front to create this design. But I actually decided to cut this apart so that I could create 2 different cards with the pieces that I cut apart from this particular piece in the kit. So I'm going to show you how I made these 2 cards. So let me just grab my scissors here and we'll cut this piece apart. So basically what I did is I just tried to cut in between the pieces here so that I could use this top piece for one card and then I could use this bottom piece for the other card. So you're going to have to cut apart in between here to separate these pieces, and we'll just separate them first and then we'll just kind of trim them out. So actually I'll just go like this with this one, and let me just get in there. All right, so you're going to cut these apart and then you're just going to use your scissors just to kind of trim these out a little bit to make it look like the rest of, this little uh, die cut piece. So I just kind of trimmed along there. Because notice how this is not cut directly on the printed design. There's a little bit of white space between the printed design and the end. And so basically that's what I'm doing with these pieces. Once I cut them apart, I'm just leaving a little bit of that white space in there and just kind of rounding off some of the jagged edges from cutting it apart. So I hope that makes sense. And then this will cut up here. So let's cut this. We'll just round this off. And so there's 3 of these in this kit. So you can cut all 3 of them apart if you want to make these alternate designs. All right, so now I have my 2 pieces. So let's start out. Let's see, let's start out with this one, I guess. We'll use the largest piece first. I'll bring in my design. So I decided to use some Berry Burst cardstock. So that's what's in the background here. And then this piece is actually one of the card bases. So I cut up, like I said, I cut apart all the card bases. So this one with the kind of splatter image is just the back of one of the card bases. And then this is just a different card base. So this piece is 4¼ by 4¼ That's basically what this is. And then I just cut some other pieces. Let me tell you what the sizes are here. So I have a 4¼ by, what is this? 3/4. So this one we're going to use up here. So it's 4¼ by about 3/4. You could use a smaller piece too, because you're going to just tuck that behind. So let's glue these together first. We'll add some glue. I'm using Granny Apple Green. That's the color. And basically I'm just going to glue these 2 pieces together. And then we'll just add it to the card front. So this will just be our background piece. So let's add this. If you use liquid glue, you can kind of scoot this around, which is what I'm trying to do. Okay, so that's our background piece. And then I just took that floral that I cut. So this is the bottom part of the floral. Here's the top piece. This is how it looked when it was together. So I just took this bottom piece and I just glued it on just with liquid glue. You can pop it up too if you want a little bit more depth and dimension, but I just decided to glue it on. We'll add that. And then you can just create your little greeting to go up here. So for my greeting, I just have a little 1/2 inch wide piece, and this is 1 3/4 inches long. And I gotta find my ink. Now I decided to use just the Berry Burst ink. This is not the ink that came in the kit, so I'm using just a different ink. But if you wanted to use the ink that came in the kit, you could just stamp some of those, stamp some of the images like this, these pretty peacock images. You can stamp those in the background if you wanted to use the pretty peacock ink, because that is the card I just showed you is the kit card. So they kind of mix the berry and the pretty peacock together. All right, so there is our greeting. And then I have another little piece that I'm just going to put behind the greeting, which is 1¼ by 3/4 by 1¼ Hey, you can tell it's a Saturday morning. Hey, okay. So let's add this. I like to always add just a little bit of color behind the greeting, not necessarily framing the whole greeting out, but just adding a little pop of color. And now I just have to find my dimensionals. Here they are. So let's add a couple of dimensionals. And my little sequins are falling off. And so this is the basic design. And you can add ribbon if you want, or linen thread, or whatever you want to just kind of jazz this up. I just used some of the sequins that came in the kit and just kind of left it simple. I used the image from the kit. So this is one of the images in the kit that of course matches this image. So I just stamped that on the inside along with one of the other images just to kind of decorate up the inside a little bit. All right, so that is the first alternate card idea. So let me move this out of the way. And then to use the other half, this time I made a landscape style card. So I'm still using Berry Burst for the card base. And then this particular piece is 3.5 by 4. So it's 3.5 by 4. And this is just a piece of the card base. And then I just cut a little 3.5-inch scrap piece of that Granny Apple Green. So we're gonna put this up at the top here. So I'm gonna put this on there first because I just want a little bit of that Granny Apple Green showing through. So this is just gonna go right at the top of our card here. Let's scoot that over a little bit. And then this piece will just go over the top like that. But before we do that, I want to stamp on this piece. So I'm going to grab my Granny Apple Green and I have to grab my little leaf. So in this stamp set, there is this leaf image. Well, there's a couple leaf images, but we're just going to use this one. And basically this piece is going to go up towards the top here. So I just want to add a little leaf image kind of coming off the side, off this right side. So we'll just add that right up in there. And you can stamp it right over the kind of the gold that is in this particular paper. So let's add our paper. Let's add this back here. So we will add this to our card front and then we'll add our flowers. All right. So that'll go on like that. And then we're going to add this flower piece up towards the top. So see how it's got that edging. So we're just going to add that up on the top. And we'll just add it with glue. Or you can use dimensionals, whatever you want to use. We'll add this up towards the top. And then we're going to create our greeting. So for the greeting, I just have a 3.5-inch long piece of white cardstock. So it's 3.5, it's about a 1/2 inch wide. So let's go ahead and add our greeting. And I'm using Berry Burst again. So if you want to coordinate these alternatives with the colors in the kit, instead of using Granny Apple Green like I used here, you could use Pretty Peacock, which is the color that came in the kit. But I just wanted to create something a little bit different. So that's why I went with Granny Apple Green. And then, where's my other piece? Then I just have a piece of Granny Apple Green that's 3 inches long and it's 3/4 inches wide. So this is just going to go behind my greeting again. So we'll add that. And see, it just gives it a really nice pop of color without having to completely frame out the greeting. So let's add some dimensionals. So did you guys get this month's kit? It really is a pretty kit. Fun to create alternatives with too. I like the stamp set because it has other images in it that you can use for, additional card making. So I just really like that. And so we're just going to add this so that it kind of covers up the bottom of that uh, flower. So we'll just add that right across there. And then you can add some embellishments. I added a little bit of linen thread just tied into a bow. And then I used some of the sequins that were in the kit. I think I used all the sequins. And then on the inside, I used the images, uh, the stamp set from this particular kit just to kind of decorate the inside. All right, so those are the two different cards that you can create from just one of those floral sprays. So you just have to cut it apart and you can create two cards. So there's three of those floral sprays in the kit. So you can create six. If I calculated that right, you can create six alternative designs. All right, now I got to find my other card. Oh, here it is. So then this next alternate design features one of these diamond shaped pieces from the kit, and it has some really fun designer paper, or I should call it a card base because that's what it is. So this is actually the card base from the kit that you can use to create. I'll show you the kit card again. So this is the card from the kit. This is the design from the kit. So you would just, stamp your images and create this design on the card bases in the kit. But I cut the card bases apart. So when I cut them apart, this is the front of the card base. So you can tell that the design is perfectly centered on the card base. But I'm going to show you the back of it. Let's see if I can figure out how I did this now. I'll have to figure this out. Which way did I cut this? I think I cut it this way. There we go. So this is the back of the card base. You can see that design is offset. It's not center. Can you see that? So this one's center, your diamond's in the center, but this one, your diamond is offset. So basically what I did when I cut apart this card base is I just cut this piece down to 3 1/8 inch. So that way I could use it to create my alternate design, which looks like this. So you can use the back of the card base. So for this one, I basically just adhered this right down the center of a pretty peacock card base. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that. So we'll add that. So it's kind of a fun way to use the card base just a little differently. And then this is one of the elements from the kit. So this actually is just going to go right on this side here. And then we have our little greeting. This is one of the elements from the kit. So I'm going to add some dimensionals to this. We'll pop this up. Let's see, we'll add 2 of them. So you can just add this right in the center here, roughly. And then we'll go ahead and add our greeting, which is going to go right in here. So it's going to go just like this. So we'll add our little dimensionals. Let's add a couple. Let's add a couple little ones. And then we are going to add some glue. So the part that is not on dimensionals, I just have a little bit of glue on there. And then this just gets added like that. And then you can decorate it with sequins or whatever you want to decorate it with. There were 3 little flowers in here, but I used all 3 of those. So I'll have to come up with something else to put on there. But I just wanted you guys to kind of see how I used that card base in the background here. So once you use up all these little elements in the kit, you can just create a different focal point. using up the rest of the card bases that have that really pretty design. All right, so that is the third card design. So I'm going to show you all of the different designs that I have. So these are the, oops, let's move this out of the way. That's not the one I wanted. I wanted these three. These are the three different designs that I just walked you through. Very simple card designs. But then there's another card base in the kit that has this really pretty floral on it. So the kit card looks like this. So this is what the card design from the kit looks like. And you start out with this floral here. And what you do is there's a really pretty die cut piece in there. And this die cut piece goes right over the top of that design that's pre-printed on the card base. So that's how you get this look from the kit card. But I actually used this piece and this separately to create some alternate designs. So this is one of the ways that I used it. I just left the flowers the way they are and just added a little bit of cardstock and a greeting and such. And just, I thought it was pretty just the way it was. And here's another one where I just used it just as is and just added a couple different layers of cardstock. So that was kind of fun. And then here's how I used that leftover piece. uh, Because if you don't use this piece on here, then you're left with this piece to use on something else. So I used it to just with one of the card bases from the kit. And I just trimmed off a 1/4 inch of the card base and adhered it to a piece of pretty peacock cardstock. And then I just added that die cut piece right over the top. So I thought that was just, I thought the die cut piece was just really pretty with all the different colors in it. So that's what I decided to do. And you can do it with any of the card bases. So see, I can add it to this card base. For this one, I used the one with the splatter, but here is just a different pattern on the card base. You could even add this to an embossed piece of white cardstock. So there's lots of fun things that you can do with that. And then some of the other card ideas, here's another one, another way that I used that diamond shaped card base. I just created a cluster of different stamped and die cut pieces. So that's how I used that there. And then same thing here. I used that diamond shape, but this time in the landscape style instead of in the portrait style. And I just stamped some images and added some die cut pieces. So there's lots of fun ways to use the kit. I think I have, do I have 8 different alternates? I think 6, 8. Yeah. 6, yeah, I do. Okay. So there you go. So hopefully you can see all those. I'll get all of these out on the blog for you so you guys can um, play around with these alternate designs. But I just really enjoyed the kit. It was a lot of fun to just create different alternates with supplies that were in the kit. I added very minimal supplies of my own. So if you really want to stretch your paper pumpkin kit, I highly recommend creating some alternate designs. It's just kind of a fun way to just get creative with supplies that are sent to you in that little red box. So I think altogether I have, let's see, I have 8 here, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, I have 18 cards so far created, and I have a few extra supplies left. So I should be able to get around 20 cards from this particular kit instead of 9. So it does make a difference when you just kind of add some of your own supplies to create some alternate designs. So I hope this inspired you and gives you some ideas for how to use the kit. If you don't have the kit, you can certainly use some of the layouts that I shared with you today with other supplies that you have on hand. Um, so I think that's what I wanted to share with you guys. The next kit that's coming out has a strawberry theme, the one that's coming out in July. And of course, I can't remember the name of it. I should write this down before I start the live. But there is a really cute kit, looks really cute, that's coming out in July. So go take a look at that. And I think I provided you guys a link just to learn more about Paper Pumpkin. So if you don't know what the subscription program is, you can learn more about it. You can also click on the link to see the upcoming kits. So the next 3 months worth of kits. Um, the theme of them has been published. So I got all of those out on my website. You guys can go check those out and see if you're interested in any of them. I have a lot of fun with Paper Pumpkin. I just like playing with it and coming up with my own ideas, creating some of theirs, but coming up with my own. So, wow, someone said they created 30 was your most. I think I created about 30. I can't remember which kit it was, but yeah, you can create a lot of cards from just one kit. So, all right, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and a great week. And I'll see you guys all again next week. So, take care, everyone.